we still learned how to read and do math. Before there was ever the civil rights movement, in Walter E. Williams' documentary, you can find it on YouTube, black people owned businesses. They went to school.
Okay, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. It's your brother Jehoshaphat Israel here in the house that God has made. Glory, glory to the great eternal God. Blessed be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, on this sit down of this show for today, I'm trying to, it's a lot of different things about our past that I understand wellly because I have did my research. I have looked at all of these things. I looked at times and date and the Reconstruction era. I looked at all of these things, right? But it's only a couple things that I really don't understand. You know what I'm saying? I understand it, but I didn't know about it until afterwards. So we're just going to go through, since there's so many different people out in the world and they don't understand the plight of African American people. And I constantly ask my people, I don't know what was worse, when they enslaved your people, or what they did to our people afterwards, what they did to our grandfathers and our grandmothers and our great aunts and our great uncles. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It seems like the same to me. So two key things that I'm going to be focusing on today is peonage laws, because all these different systems that I talk about and I go through in this sit down for today is oppression that happened to your people after emancipation, you know what I'm saying? After the Civil War, you know what I'm saying? After that they were set free, or I can't even really say that they were set free. They were just locked in the same systems. And the only truly thing that I can think about our people that changed is sometimes that white people will get they would get locked up for murdering us. But other than that, anything that happened in slavery happened to our people afterwards. So I just want to go through these things, but my main focus was on the COINTELPRO because I didn't understand what COINTELPRO means. I never really understood it. I never, you know what I'm saying? I know all the other systems, but I can't even say, well, it is fairly new because all these systems started one after another and they never stopped all the way until now. And even though it's 2025, those systems are still in America. So ain't nothing. This is why we say as black people, ain't nothing changed for black people. Ain't nothing really changed for us like that. And it's a damn shame when we had the Civil Act rights of 1866 that was passed in Congress. And then we had to go ahead and start the civil rights movement in the 1960s because of COINTELPRO. So as we look at all these things, we just going to go back on these things to get a better understanding of how many different systems was set up on oppression of your people. So let's go back because I got my notes this morning time. Okay. Systems set up after the Civil War of 1865. All these happened while and before the Great Depression. We had vagrancy laws. That's one. What is vagrancy laws? Meaning that if you didn't have a job and you weren't working, you didn't have your own business, you would be incarcerated. They would lock you up and put you back on the plantation to do the same jobs that you had before. So nothing really changed. Remember, this is after the Civil War in 1865 when we were so-called set free. You know what I'm saying? White people didn't have any vagrancy laws. They didn't lock a white man up because he didn't have a job. You know what I'm saying? They only did so-called African Americans, Negroes, so-called black people that live here in America. So that's one. We have vagrancy laws, black codes. Number two, what are black codes? What are black codes? To force black people into labor systems, sharecropping. Sharecropping and black codes are damn near the same thing because any codes that they did to your people, anything that they did to my great grandfather and my great grandmother in slavery, they brought black codes in to do the same things to them. So once more again, from vagrancy laws to black code, did nothing change? You know what I'm saying? Did nothing change? Okay, to force black people into labor systems such as sharecropping. Now, sharecropping didn't end until like I can't even say that. I can't even say that because Sharecropping would be number three, but they had other systems set up right after sharecropping. You know what I'm saying? Just right after sharecropping. So let's go back into black codes. Black codes was made to incarcerate your people. Certain systems that they had already in slavery, they just changed the name on it, and they called it black codes. Whatever they was doing to your people, what all of it, you know what I'm saying? It did not change. It just took another system of a name. That's about it. That was 1865. Vagrancy laws popped up right after. You know what I'm saying? That was 1866, where they would lock your people up for not having a job. Debt peonage. I know I'm pronouncing that. Peonage is to get your people. Hold up. What was the proper? Hold on. Let me find it. It was still like a system set up to put your people in debt, to keep them in debt. Just like sharecropping, we all know what sharecropping was. Your great grandmother and your great grandfather, right after slavery, when we were sold set to be set free, they had us working on the plantations, and they had us doing the same thing that we were doing, saying that we would get paid, but we never got paid for it. We worked in slavery after slavery, you know what I'm saying? Right back on them plantations and sharecropping, and it was supposed to be 50-50. Whatever the crops that your grandfather, half of it was supposed to be his, half of it was supposed to be your grandmother's. They didn't do that. They didn't pay them, you know what I'm saying? They paid them nothing, and we were still on the same damn plantations. We're not talking about slave breeding right now. We're not talking about buck breaking. You know what I'm saying? We're not talking about Jim Crow laws right at this moment. We're talking about sharecropping. We're talking about all the systems that was set up to keep your people enslaved, to keep them in bondage. Okay, so sharecropping. Now, they wouldn't lock your people up, but they still had our people working on those plantations. Okay. Black codes. We know black codes is the same thing as slavery. You know what I'm saying? Debt peonage, meaning that they had systems set up to overtax, to overcharge your people, to make them to make them go in debt so they can lock them up. Basically what it was, you know what I'm saying? To make them go in debt, charging them fees for trying to vote, literacy laws and comprehension laws just to vote. All these things were happening. Okay, debt peonage. They wanted your people locked up to force them to go back into slavery. Okay, labor contracts. Labor contracts was just unfair contracts that your people had to sign, no different than sharecropping. It's no different. It was the same thing. It was sharecropping, but it was under a new name. Your great grandmother and your great grandfather couldn't get no contracts like that. They were paid like a penny on the dollar. It was hard for them to buy land. You know what I'm saying? They had to be damn near Superman and Superwoman just to obtain some land and start a business. That was the labor contracts. Okay, let's move forward. Apprenticeship laws. What is that? To force black children and orphans into unpaid labor for white landowners. Still sharecropping, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't just sharecropping, but it was sharecropping on orphans and children and kids that didn't have apprenticeship laws forced little black children to go back into slavery. It did, you know what I'm saying? It did. And this is right after the labor. All these things are happening around the same time. The labor contracts, the debt peonage, the vagrancy laws, the black code, the Jim Crow, the sharecropping, you know what I'm saying? The vagrancy laws. Your people ain't got no job, so they just lock them up. You know what I'm saying? Black codes is the same codes that they carried during slavery. Anything that they would do to your people, any malice, any horrific graphic behavior of unaliving black people. That's basically what it means. So apprenticeship laws force black children and orphans into unpaid labor for white landowners. Slavery, you know what I'm saying? Slave. So did slavery really end if they had apprenticeship laws? I don't think so, because it forced black children and orphans into unpaid labor for white landowners. Okay, The pig laws. What is that? Discrimination laws. The same laws as black code. Same laws, because they were harsh on vagrancy statutes and unfair property laws. Okay, that was the pig laws. To basically, it was just like the vagrancy laws. If your people didn't have a job, if they stole a pig because they didn't have no job, they would just put them right back into slavery. Right back into slavery. Look at all these different systems that was implemented and forced on your people all the way into the 1960s and the 1980s, all the way to 2025. Because we still have remnants and we still have your government experimenting on black people. Ain't nothing changed. You know what I'm saying? So when I look at all the different races of people that come over to this country, they never had any systems that were placed over them to enslave their people. So how could they understand this? They'd never be able to understand this. You know what I'm saying? They'd never, and all, they wasn't here in the Great Depression. You know what I'm saying? They don't know what no vagrancy laws are. They don't know what black codes. They don't know what Jim Crow is. They don't know what sharecropping is. They ain't never heard nothing like that. Apprenticeship laws on their children, labor contracts, debt peonage. Let's keep on going because there's so many of them. You know what I'm saying? It changes one name and it just does the same thing. Vagrancy laws, locking black people up because they don't have a job. Sharecropping, putting black people right back in the same system of slavery under a new name. Jim Crow laws. You know what I'm saying? Jim Crow's laws. How is that any different than black? You had black codes, right? There's black codes in 1865. But how is that any different from 1866 with the Jim Crow laws? There is no difference. You know what I'm saying? It's the same system put in a new name to do the same thing that it was doing before, oppressing black people in this country. Let's keep on going. Okay. Jim Crow laws, they were made to re-enslave black people. Black codes, same thing. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. How is that any different from slavery if the Jim Crow laws was made to enslave black people? So let's look. Okay, we got 1, we got 2, we got 3, we got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. 16, 17. So there's 17 different systems that was put on black people only in this country. And no other race of people who came here can say that. They don't have our plight. That's why I sit up here and I look at the Native American people. They didn't have no labor contracts with white people. They didn't have no apprentice laws for the Native Americans. They didn't have the small population of people that were being conformed into Mexicans because they're a fairly new race of people. They didn't have anything like that. They didn't have any forced black codes on them. So you look at all the white people that was in this country, they didn't have nothing like that on them. They didn't have no black codes, no vagrancy, no debt peonage, no labor contracts, no child apprenticeship laws on them. Okay, now we're going to Jim Crow. That's number 12. Jim Crow, to re-enslave black people. Okay, number 13, convict leasing. What they did, they made up laws to lock up black people, and then they made laws more restrictive for black people, meaning that it would only affect black people. Black people would be the only people that get arrested. What happened to convict leasing? It was just like slavery all over again, where they was using black bodies to make a profit. So it's no different than slavery. Convict leasing. Okay, criminal justice systems to re-enslave black people through forced labor. So you had convict leasing. It's the same thing as the criminal justice system to re-enslave black people through forced labor. Okay, you had convict leasing first. They stopped convict leasing. They gave it another name. They called it criminal justice system. That's what they called it, to re-enslave black people through forced labor laws. Okay, economy control systems. What is that? It was barriers to land ownership, fair wages, and education. Now, as you look at all these, and I'm pretty sure I missed some of them. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty damn sure, even though I went from all the way, we started at the Civil War in 1885, all the different systematic things that happened to black people, your great grandfather, your great grandmother, your great aunties, and your great uncles, what happened to them? All of these things go all the way back down to the civil rights movement that was fought in the 1960s, not that long ago. You know what I'm saying? So I stopped at economy control systems because they were barriers of land ownership and fair wages and education. Same thing happened to where we had Malcolm X and Martin Luther King marching for civil rights in the 1960s. So from 1865 all the way to 1960, all the way to 1980, all the way to 2025, these systems never went away. That's why I'm focused on it. What did I say? I really didn't understand what debt peonage was. We're going to go over it. I really didn't understand what was it? It was debt peonage, and it was black codes. I really didn't understand what that meant. You know what I'm saying? What it meant. But we're gonna go over COINTELPRO. That was in the 1960s. So I want to go over these things to get more information. And if anybody can say anything, this is why black people are the way that they are. This is why we act the way that we act, because we have these systems. You know what I'm saying? What happened to black people? All of these things happened to us. Jim Crow laws, black code, vagrancy laws, debt peonage, labor contract, apprenticeship laws for our children, to force black children, orphans, into unpaid labor for white landowners, black laws, pig laws. It was discrimination laws, harsh vagrancy statutes, unfair property laws, Jim Crow, convict leasing, criminal justice systems to re-enslave black people through forced labor, economy control system, barriers to land ownership, fair wages, and education. Before that time, right after the Civil War, we had vagrancy laws. Right after the Great Depression, we had black codes. You know what I'm saying? We had sharecropping right after the Civil War. So let's get into this.
They were educated. So if we could do that then, when we didn't have civil rights, why do we need it now?
I really liked what she had to say there. When black people were at our worst when it came to adversity, we were still overcoming. We had thriving black communities, black businesses, you had Black Wall Street, you had all these different things that were coming up and rising in the black community when we were dealing with oppression, when we were dealing with actual segregation. But this coddle culture that we have, if anything...
So I don't really agree with everything that the brother's saying. Far as the historic events that happen to your people, I do. But far as in his opinion, I really don't care about it. You know what I'm saying? I really don't care about it. So let's get into this. So let's go into COINTELPRO. Now, we talked about all of those different systems, right? From the end of Civil War, from the Emancipation Proclamation, from the Great Depression. Okay, we talked about those systems, you know what I'm saying, that was back in the day, but in more time, you know what I'm saying, in more time, you know what I'm saying, in the 1960s, what was happening? Just because those systems were set up in 1865 doesn't mean that the United States government wasn't doing stuff to black people, you know what I'm saying? So you got 100 years, if not 140 years of documented oppression done to black people in your law books, in your history books. And you wonder why black people are the way that we are. You know what I'm saying? All this harm has been done to us with no time to healing. You know what I'm saying? And you just go and get it another stab. When you finish stabbing us, you know what I'm saying, you go ahead and stab us again. You know what I'm saying? And when we about to heal up again, you stab us again. So this is the 1960s. So what was the United States government doing to black people in the 1960s, which we know was only one generation? To me, That's my mother and my father's generation. That's not even my grandparents. They were born in the 1950s. My dad was born in the 1950s. My mother was born in the 1960s. I was born in the 80s. So what was happening? What was happening to my parents from the government? We talked about what happened to my great grandparents and my great great grandparents. We talked about this 5 or 6 generations from the Civil War, from Emancipation and Proclamation, from the Great Depression. What happened?
Late 60s.
A great.
Let's go back.
How much research and study did the FBI engage in of black culture in the late 60s?
A great amount.
Give me an idea.
They have a file on every type of magazine that blacks read. They have a file on the music, dance, theater, actors, comedians, you name it, man.
And they would actually study these different...
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, this was the 1960s. My brothers and sisters, don't think our government don't have agencies that is studying us no different than the 1960s. Ain't nothing changed. You could call it the hip hop force task. You can call it any name that you want to call it, but we're still being monitored. We're still being watched. We're still being infiltrated by our government. Okay, go ahead, brother. My bad.
What would they do with music?
To understand the people, you have to understand the culture. To infiltrate, you have to understand it. You had a lot of so-called white liberals that were infiltrating the so-called black groups using the information that they had gathered from the studies of blacks.
You mean just to understand the behavior pattern of our people?
Oh yeah, I can,
The only reason why you would study a people is to destroy them or to control them or to manipulate him. And we seen in the 1960s, we seen black exploitation through the movies, through the music, all the entertainers, all the people in sport. So it was a whole machine that was being driven for black exploitation to gather money from our people, to become rich over our people. They didn't pay our people the right wages. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't trying to be fair with them whatsoever. That's why it was a whole movement for about like 70 years to just exploit black people on film, to exploit black people in their music, to exploit black businesses. You know what I'm saying? All of this stuff has been happening to black people. There is no other group that live here. I don't care if they was here or they just got here, that has been under surveillance, under attack, being exploited by the United States government. And they want to sit up here and say, we don't think black people deserve reparations. We don't give a good damn what you think. You know what I'm saying? What you think. It wasn't none of your people going through these systems all the way back then, all the way to this current day, all the way, you know what I'm saying, to this current day. You know what I'm saying? It's 2025. Okay, my bad, brother. Go ahead.
He could name off some jams of Miles Davis that I hadn't even heard of. He could name off some books that I hadn't even read pertaining to black culture.
Do you ever see agents actually studying the music of...
Yes, I've seen them going over even video portion of cultural events. Okay, you have an organization like Leroy Jones Black House. You remember that? Okay, Leroy Jones's place, which was done on the thing of tribalism. That's where I first heard the word Kintu, Mantu, Huntu, Hentu. These words of the African continuum. I learned that from an agent. He ran it down to me. They make in-depth studies of the personalities of the people they're dealing with too. Cultural.
So they sit up here and they wonder why all the other communities flourish, but ain't none of the communities been under attack. None of them. You know what I'm saying? We have been building cities and we've been building towns and we've been building every single thing. You know what I'm saying? We've been building every single thing and every single time all the way. It does not matter that they burned and bombed towns that black people made in 1920s. They were still doing the same thing in the 80s, in the ghettos, in the projects, wherever our people, we congregated. Wherever we came together, you know what I'm saying, and we lived, has been under attack by the United States government. What other race of people that live here in this country can say that? The natives can't say that. The native reds, they can't say that. The Mexicans, they cannot say that. The Asian people can't say that. Any newly race of people who come to this country cannot say that. All the African refugees and all the Africans that are displaced that come to this country, they can't say that. Can't nobody but black people. We were called niggers at one time. We were called Negroes at one time. We were called colors at one time. And right now we calling ourselves Black Americans. If you ain't from that lineage, if you ain't from that line of people, you have never experienced any of these things. And these same things affect black people and our children and our generations to come. Told you, this was happening to my parents in the 1960s. They was children going through this stuff. And I have showed you every single thing that happened to your great-great-grandfather, your great-great-great-grandfather, your great-great-grandmother, your great-great-great-grandmother, all of these things.
Us, what was done in the 60s, and we find them to be that. We will kill them, chop off their heads, and bring their heads to you. Brothers, don't you be no damn fool. Because see, the white man can't hide your black. To us, what was...
There's only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. This is an anonymous letter sent by the FBI to Martin Luther King, urging him to commit suicide. He was one of the primary targets for the FBI's illegal surveillance program in the 60s called COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program which targeted many civil rights groups.
So not only was they sitting there and they was exploiting your people, you know what I'm saying, getting all up in our business, watching every single thing that we was doing, profiting over our hard works, no different than slavery, profiting off of our hard works. And the whole time they sitting up over here eliminating and assassinating all of our top leaders. What other group of people in this country can say that? LULAC, you know what I'm saying? What organization that was formed and founded in this country can say that they had the FBI, the CIA, the United States government openly attacking them because they see our people as a threat?
Such as the Black Panthers and the American Indian Movement, and activists like Stokely Carmichael and Malcolm X for more than a decade. The purpose was to, quote, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize the possible threats against the existing order. The program was exposed in 1971 when a group of activists stole documents from an FBI office on the night of the...
You mean to tell me we didn't even know till 1971 that all these things was happening to us? So when we wonder why the crates of guns are put in the hoods, it's your government doing that. We wonder why was our neighborhoods flooded in the 1980s with sherm and heroin and crack cocaine and methamphetamines? Why did that happen? It's your government attacking black people. You know what I'm saying? And they want to destroy us from within. If you understand them, if they can get us to destroy our own self, they can't say that they did anything. They won't blend when the UN looks in on the discrimination practices of the United States towards so-called African American. If America can get us to destroy ourselves from within, their conscience and the paper trail doesn't lead back to America. It's a smart ass plan, ain't it? But we got to think, you know what I'm saying? We got to think. We got to look at all these things. We are still under attack.
the Muhammad Ali Joe Frazier fight, and leak them to the press. Today, COINTELPRO is something people recall from the past as the darkest FBI program exposed so far.
Now, what we're going to look at is more modern time, the attack. And you'd be like, what do you mean? We're going to look at Ferguson in 2014. Because anything that's happening in Ferguson in 2014 is still basically the same thing that's happening in Ferguson in 2025. These same systems that are set up with the United States of America going after so-called black people.
For 4 hours, that type of trauma, it really seeps into the soil of a community.
The thing about Ferguson you have to remember is people weren't just protesting the death of an unarmed black teen.
People were protesting revenue-generating policing and the resurgence of the modern day.
Okay, now, you heard what she said. Now, how is that any different from vagrancy laws? How is that if you're going to vagrancy laws, you know what I'm saying? How is that any different from debt peonage? How is that any different from black codes if you're just trying to force black people into slavery to work for the system all over again? As I look at it, it's no different than convict leasing. The criminal justice system is no different than those two systems that were set up over your people to exploit black people and gain a revenue of I can't even say of property, but of money. Of monetary gain, you know what I'm saying? Of monetary gain. Okay, go ahead.
A debtor's prison to make people poor and keep people poor.
Let's go back one more time because I got to hear that
Revenue
again.
generating policing and the resurgence of the modern day debtor's prison to make people poor and keep people poor.
Days of protests turned into weeks into months. Prominent voices became leaders, and leaders took charge of a movement.
This country has always devalued black bodies, has never seen black people as worthy of protection or their rights.
If you look around today, those same protesters are still on the ground, reimagining what justice should look like.
Cash bail is the driver of this institution, and it's punishing people strictly for their poverty.
Mike Brown. And the work that we're doing right now is a continuation of the fight that he had in the middle of that street, when he was literally fighting for his life.
In this new vision of St. Louis, Missouri, elected officials answer to them.
We're not going to stop. Every single tool that has literally oppressed communities just like this, we on attack.
This is why I say, you know what I'm saying? This is why I say all the time, you know what I'm saying? Just like I said, I don't know what happened to our people. Was it worse or after emancipation, a proclamation? Was it after, did we do good after the Civil War? They said in Reconstruction during the Lyndon P. John era, we had 7 years, give or take, that we were doing good. Other than that, it looked all bad. You know what I'm saying? It looks all bad. Our history and what our government has done to us. And they want to still sit up here and say, well, I don't think black people deserve reparations. You don't know the history of this country. Shut your ass up and go sit your ass down somewhere. Pick up a history book and learn the history of this country. To the white folks, you know what I'm saying? To the white folks, sit your ass down, shut your ass up and learn the history of this country, because all these oppressive tools that was used against our people was the same as slavery. So what are you going to pay for? You know what I'm saying? You're going to pay for the slavery and you're going to pay for what you did afterwards, because it's the same thing. There's nothing different in it. And all of our people know this. I'm not the only one. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the only one. So you can't sit up there and say, oh, ain't none of this stuff been happening. I just sit up here and I explain what COINTELPRO was. Did that. You know what I'm saying? I did that for my people to have a better understanding of what it is. Vagrancy laws, black codes, labor contracts, convict leasing, sharecropping, black code, Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? Jim Crow. What is this one? Apprenticeship laws force black children and orphans into unpaid labor for white landowners. How is that any different? You talk about black people getting jobs and black people having homes. Those go back into the pig laws. It really does. They go right back. Why black people can't get no loans for homes? Why is it more harder? Because in 1910, they started something called pig laws. They had labor contracts. Stop your people from being able to do things. You know what I'm saying? Convict leasing. So economy control systems. This is why it's harder for us to get businesses and to get homes and to get loans. Those things were started way back when, but they're still here to this day under another name. That's why we going through all of this stuff. And this is why I brought Ferguson in here to show you that even though it's modern time and it's more closer to 2025, it's still the same thing. Hasn't changed.
6,000 blacks owned other slaves by 1840. Because as soon as they got free under meritorious manumission, they ran out and tried to be white and hired and bought them some black slaves. And then when you saw tears coming out of my eyes, I just thought about, again, I was thinking about down in New Orleans. Down in New Orleans, and blacks down there saying, Dr. Evans, what can bring us together? And I said, you got a big problem. They said, why? And that's why I had the tears. Let me tell you something. In New Orleans was the epitome of black folk doing in other black folk. On the eve of the Civil War in New Orleans,
and that has been going on because of what did Anderson said. You know what I'm saying? We have those amongst our people to this day. You know what I'm saying? To this day, just like your people was way back when they was with Moses and they was running to the Red Sea, and your people kept on sitting up over there talking about, oh, I want to go back to Egypt. We had cucumbers and we had tomatoes and we had watermelons. We all got turncoats in our own people. It's always been that way, always. But we're not gonna let our people stop us. We are not. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to let them stop us. And it's always been more of us than it is of them. They're only 10% of us that would think like a white man, that talk like a white man and want the things that white people want. 90% of our people are not like that.
350,000 abortions from black women in America every year. You ain't mad? 7,000 black men dead every year in America. You ain't mad? A million black men in prison? You ain't mad? You should be furious as black men and black women to know why the hell we destroy it like this. And the reason we destroy it is because we don't want to face it. We got to put our emotions aside and we got to have rules. Just like you go to work. When you go to work, you first come in human resources, they got all.
Now, black codes was used against us in slavery and after slavery. But we as a people, we have to have our own codes of conducts and decorum that we follow as black people. And it has to be a penance that you would have to pay if you break those codes. You know what I'm saying? We got to clean house. We got to the black codes was used against us, but we need more codes for our people to follow, for ourselves, to build our own selves up. So I started this conversation to let you know some things that I didn't understand. I did. COINTELPRO, I just didn't understand what that really meant like that. But I had to live through that. You know what I'm saying? I had to live through that because I was in the 80s and I seen all our brothers and sisters that was actors and actresses and just regular people and what was happening to them. Seen all of that stuff and how it affected our people. But we still need these black codes for our own people to enforce on our own people to make us act right. When we clean our house, we'll know where the attack is coming from. You won't be able to attack us internally. We won't destroy ourselves internally. You know what I'm saying? The fight will be on the external and everybody else will see it. A lot of these things have been hidden in plain sight. A lot of these things have been misconstrued in history and time and having different people talk about them, not talking about the truth of what's happening to black people in this country. So I just wanted to leave it there and just bring up these things so you can get a better understanding of what's happening and what has happened to your people all the way to what's happening to us right now.
Been fighting for 400 years.
And your peoples too.
So I just want you to explain what you mean by that.
You know what I'm talking about. Y'all all know what I'm talking about, man. Don't sit up here and try to bait
and not know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what the fuck I talk about when I say these things. Your people too.
Explain it. Not everybody knows what you're talking about.
Radio Raheem, I don't have to explain what's understood, man. You know what I mean by that. You know what I say about it. I ain't gotta go further. And if anybody don't understand that, then God be with them. Go look up the history. Go look up the history. This shit don't everybody believe in Google? Go Google that shit. See what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, man. You know what. I dare you to sit up there and say, explain. You know what I'm talking about, man. He's fighting people. You know we've been fighting 400 and still fighting to this day. To this day. To this day.
People have been fighting for